Hi, welcome to tdcat.com. Today I want to talk to you about the Sony FDR-AX53. That is the most recent camera that I've bought, and I'm going to be doing some tests on it and posting those up. In fact, I've already posted a couple up. I'm going to be doing a full review, but for now I just want to talk to you about the bad points of the camera. And I don't want this to come across as a negative thing, because it should be seen as a positive, because basically the camera can be assumed to be extremely good apart from these few points. So firstly, let's just position what I'm going to be using the camera for. I bought it as a replacement for my iPhone. So when I video on my iPhone, if I'm out and about and I want to do some videoing, I often use my iPhone. I bought it as a replacement for that because no matter how much iPhones improve and how much the quality is great, the control just isn't as good on an iPhone as it is with a handheld camera that you can hold up, and it's got dedicated buttons and controls to do video functions. You're not kind of messing about with a screen that you can't see and that type of thing. That is the reason I bought the camera. So I suppose it's closest to someone doing a vlog for YouTube, that kind of thing. There really aren't many bad things about this camera. For the money, you get excellent image quality, you get a lot of functionality, and you just get a really good, well-built overall package. But there are a few. Firstly, number one, there is no ND filter built into this camera. If you're shooting in bright light, if you're shooting in bright sunlight, it very quickly gets to a point where the fact that the camera is having to ramp up the shutter speed to keep the light level down, because this only goes up to, what is it, F2, I think it sort of stops itself at F11 or something. But after that, of course, it has to raise the shutter speed. So you end up with shooting at shutter speeds of 1/150th of a second, 200, 300, 400th of a second. And you can really see that in your footage, particularly with 25 frames a second UHD footage. It says 4K on the camera. It's not 4K, it's UHD, isn't it? UHD footage, you really see that stuttering look, and it really does become quite fatiguing to watch that type of footage. An ND filter, which is built into is it the FX100, the one kind of up from this one? It is built into that, and it's a really helpful thing. It would be a really helpful thing. And I can see completely why they didn't include it on this camera, because it really drives, I imagine, drives a lot of people up to that next sort of camera, which is about 50% more expensive. So that's the first point, no ND filter. So you can buy one. You can buy a variable ND filter, 55mm, stick it on the front, and hopefully that will do a good job. I bought one of those, 25 quid for some, it's not an amazing one probably, but hopefully it does its job. I haven't had a chance to test it yet because I haven't got it yet. But we'll see how that works. It's nowhere near as convenient as having a switch on the side or an automatic ND filter. But it can do the job, so you can get around that problem. The second thing, and the really irritating thing, is that although there are manual functions on this camera, they are limited, and you can only, out of your main kind of shutter speed, iris, you know, those two that you really ideally want to be able to control together. So you can set your shutter speed to 1/50th of a second, and you can set your iris, your aperture in camera terms, to maybe 5.6 or whatever. And you cannot, whatever you do, you cannot control those two manually together. If you turn one onto auto, if you turn one onto manual and then you turn the second one onto manual, the other one switches back onto auto. That is a bloody pain in the arse, and it's a very, very limiting feature on the camera if you're kind of someone that is familiar with manual controls on a video camera. For me, it's not a deal breaker in the slightest, because as I say, I bought this camera to take out, shoot on auto, pretty much as I'm doing now. This is being shot on the FX53. shoot it on manual, on full auto, and just go with it. If it doesn't look absolutely amazing all the time, so what? It's the fact that you've gathered the footage, you've got the footage from where you were because you had a camera with you. That's what it's about for me. But that is a really, really limiting feature. Another bad point, which I think they could probably fix in firmware, but it's not a big deal because you can control it anyway, is the stabilization. If you have the stabilization on and you rest the camera down, the camera kind of detects, it has an automatic detect that you have now got the camera on somewhere stable, and it turns it off. So which is great, you know, if you're on a tripod, that's absolutely fine. But if you're kind of just you rest your palm on the back of your palm on like a post or something, and you're shooting something and slowly moving it across, and the camera's really quite stable, as if you were just very gently panning on a tripod. Suddenly then, and you're zoomed in, suddenly then your stabilization turns off, and all of a sudden you realize how much the stabilization's actually doing on the shot, and it starts shaking about, and you're just like, great, that clip is ruined. You need to kind of be aware of that and set it up on a tripod to actually turn the stabilization off, which locks the lens in place, and they really kind of should have the option to disable that. 2 more points. Firstly, the power up. The whole power up of the camera is a bit irritating because it powers up when you open the door on the side. There should, in software, be the option to say, don't power it up, only power it up when I press the power button. Because a lot of the time you want to take the card out of the camera, you might not want to transfer from the camera itself, you want to take the card out, you might want to swap the card around or do something. Just look at something. You don't want every single time for it to open up, the stabilizer to kick in, the lens thing to open, and power basically uses power as well, doesn't it? So that is a bit of an irritation, and I think that if anyone were to watch this from Sony, they could so easily fix that and just have that option, you know, power up by power button or by viewfinder. Not viewfinder. What do you call the things on the side of a camcorder? Display screen, LCD screen. Yeah. Jesus. Right. And finally, it's only a small thing, but the output via HDMI is clean. You can turn off the controls, so you can either have the HDMI with your kind of on-screen menus, or you can have it clean. However, if you do touch the screen, it will bring up those displays again. If you do anything, so if you change, there are certain things you can change while you're recording, which is great. But if you're pumping out clean HDMI to maybe an external recorder, if you press something on the screen to change something, it will bring up the display back on the screen, and your output is no longer clean. So they've sort of given you a halfway point, because the manual button on the side, which is absolutely brilliant by the way, the manual button on the side that allows you to kind of access various manual functions via the ring on the front of the camera, that and the menu that comes with that does not get pushed out via the HDMI. So you can make adjustments to your shot while you're recording via the HDMI output or viewing via the HDMI output, but it is again kind of limited. And that's what you get with all cameras. You know, if you spend $5 grand on a camera, you will have more sort of advanced features, but they will also be limited in one way or another, just because of technology and because of marketing, really, as much as anything else. So that's about it. They are the bad points I can find so far on this camera. Everything else really is excellent for the money. It is, you know, it's an £800 camera, a $1,000 camera, and it is extremely capable, extremely well built, and I will do a full review on it where I'll go over the bad and I'll go over the good, and we'll get into a little bit more detail. But for now, they are the bad points only of the FDR-AX53 from Sony. Assume from that that the rest of the stuff is really good. This is tdcat.com. Thank you for watching. If you do like what we do and what I do, then please do subscribe to the channel, because it's really nice when you do. It's really motivating, and it's just good. If you've got any questions on the camera, if you'd like to see some raw clips, if you'd like me to shoot something, test something, just comment below, and I will catch you soon.